or that we hear others saying that shows that they are truly hurt or they find it difficult to forgive. Sometimes those who are seriously hurt or find it difficult to forgive, we hear them saying that, I have forgiven you for what you have done to me, but I will never forget it. Sometimes we hear them saying, I have written those points or what you have said, I have written them down so that I will never forget it. Sometimes some can even go to the extent of even printing WhatsApp messages or text messages so that they'll keep it and they will not be able to forget what a brother or sister has done to him or her. Sometimes some will even go to the extent of saying, what you have done to me, I will never forgive you. When I die, do not come for my funeral. And when you also die before me, I will also not come to your funeral. Some will even say that because of what you have done to me, when you see me, do not talk to me. Just pass by and go your way. Forgiveness is something that is difficult for us to do. But all the three readings of today are talking about forgiveness. And the readings are encouraging us to learn how to forgive one another. The readings are also encouraging us to have good thoughts about our enemy. And the readings are also encouraging us to wish our enemies well, to pray for them. And if our enemy dies, the readings are encouraging us to go for the funeral of our enemy. Our first reading of today was taken from the first book of Samuel. And in this reading, David had the opportunity to get rid of his enemy Saul. When we go through the scriptures, we'll notice that David killed Goliath to save Saul. And now the way in which he was being repaid was now Saul looking for a way to kill David, who some time ago tried to save his life. Today's reading tells us how David and his nephew Abishai met Saul and his enemy and his companions deeply asleep. And that was a good opportunity for David to get rid of Saul. But David rather used that opportunity to forgive Saul for all the offenses that he had committed against him. The second reading of today was taken from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. And this reading talks about life after death. And the reading makes it clear to us that all of us are created in the image and likeness of God. And for us to bear this same image in heaven, one thing that all of us have to learn how to do is to forgive one another. So if we forgive one another, we'll bear this image of God in heaven. But if we do not forgive one another in a way, we'll not be able to bear this image of God. The gospel reading of today was taken from the Gospel of Luke. And in this gospel, Jesus told his disciples to love their enemies and to forgive them. Jesus makes it clear to us that we should not only love those who love us, because everyone does that. Even sinners love those who love them. And it makes it clear to us again that we should not only do good to those who do good to us, because that one, everyone does it. Even sinners do the same. And we should not only learn to those who will get something back from them, but we should learn to those who will not give us anything back. Because if we learn only to those who will give us something back, that one, everyone does it, even sinners do the same. But we should rather make a difference. And the way in which we can make this difference is by loving our enemies, is by forgiving our enemies, and praying for our enemies and wishing them well. So in a nutshell, today's readings are encouraging us to love our enemies, forgive our enemies, pray for our enemies, and wish our enemies well. There are two lessons that I would like us to take home from these beautiful three readings that we listened to today. First of all, we are all being encouraged to become David. We are all being encouraged to become David. When we go through the scriptures, as I earlier on said, David or Saul was trying to look for ways and means to kill David. But on all those occasions, he was never successful. And in today's first reading, we are told how David rather got the opportunity to get rid of someone who was trying to kill him. We are told that David met Saul and all his companions deeply asleep, and he was able to come close to where Saul was sleeping with a spear just beside Saul. So all what David had to do was to take this spear and strike Saul and get rid of him. And Abishai told him, this is the greatest opportunity for you to get rid of someone who has been looking for you, to get rid of you. You know the number of occasions that he has tried to kill you, but he was not successful. So this is the last or the best moment for you to get rid of Saul. Even if you cannot do it, you just give me the command, and I myself will strike Saul for you. This is what Abishai said. But what was the response of David? He said, do not destroy him. For who can put forth his hand against the Lord's anointed without being guiltless? In other words, David used that opportunity to forgive his enemy Saul. I am asking all of us to try and become David, because most of the time, the things that people do to us and in which we are finding it difficult to forgive them, we get the opportunity to do the same to our fellow brother or sister. But that is not an opportunity to revenge. That is not an opportunity to teach our brother or sister a lesson. But it is rather an opportunity to behave like David and forgive our enemy. For some of us, maybe what we are finding it difficult to forgive someone may be someone bearing false witness against us. And that false witness may have sent some of us to prison or may have put some of us into trouble. We may get the opportunity to do the same to our enemy, but we should become David at that instance and forgive our brother or sister. For some of us, what we are finding it difficult to forgive is our fellow brother or sister or our enemy snatching our boyfriend or girlfriend, our husband or wife. We may get the opportunity to do the same. At that instance, we should become David and forgive our enemy or our fellow brother or sister. For some of us, ours may be us almost getting a position, going for an interview, and everyone knowing that this position, we are just a step ahead to get it. And our enemy will find ways and means to snatch that position from us. we may get the opportunity to do the same to our enemy. At that instance, we should become David and forgive our enemy for that offense that he has or she has committed against us. For some of us, the money that is our due or maybe our property, someone will find ways and means to take it away from us. We may get the opportunity to do the same to our enemy. When we get that opportunity, we should become David and forgive our fellow brother or sister. For some of us, we may find it difficult to forgive our enemy because anything that we try to build, our enemy will try to destroy it. At that instance, when we get an opportunity to do the same to our enemy, we should become David and forgive our enemy. We live in a world in which when someone does something bad to us, we have to teach the person a lesson. We have to do the same to that person or even try to do something more than what our fellow brother or sister or enemy did to us. So you can see that we live in a world in which we pay back evil with evil. But in today's first reading, David paid back evil with good. So we are being encouraged to become David so that the people who have offended us or those whom we know are our enemies, instead of us paying back evil with evil, we will rather pay back evil with good. And by doing so, that means that we are emulating the good example of David in today's first reading. Secondly and lastly, we are to pray for our enemies. And what did Jesus say concerning our enemies, or how did Jesus say we should pray for them? Jesus said, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. This is how Jesus said we should pray for our enemies. I know many of us or all of us are very prayerful. And in our prayers, we pray for our loved ones and we pray for those who are good. And also in our prayers, we pray for our enemies. How do we normally pray for our loved ones and those who are good to us? When we pray for them, we express the love that we have for them to God. In our prayers for good people or our loved ones, we do good to those who love us in our prayers. And we also rain blessings on them when we are praying. We end up saying, God, may the sky be the limit of my loved one, of my child, of my husband, of my wife, or that person who is so good to us. May that person lack no blessing. May goodness be their portion. May they prosper in their lives. These are some of the blessings that will rain down on those who we love or those who are good to us. Now, when we are praying for our enemies, what do we say? We express our hatred for them to God, and we rain curses on them. And whilst raining curses on them, sometimes you see that we'll be clapping our hands with all our energy, or we'll be stepping on the ground with all our energy, thinking that when we do that, that is how God is also going to punish them. And what are some of the curses that we end up raining on our enemies? May they never prosper. Whatever they touch, may it never be successful. May they get seriously sick and even die. And even if they get sick or whatever, we pray that God should make it happen to them. It should not only happen to our enemy, but it should happen to their nuclear family and extended family. This is how sometimes we pray. God is telling us to love our enemies, do good to those who hate us, bless those who curse us, pray for those who abuse us. This is how God is telling us to pray for our enemies. And look at the way we pray for our enemies. So if we pray for our enemies in this way, this is how God is going to listen to our prayer. So if you end up praying, expressing your hatred, clapping so hard, and raining curses on your enemy, in a way you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time, your energy, and your resources. Because if you spend hours to pray like this, God will not listen to such a prayer. He has told you how to pray for your enemy, and you are praying in a different way. It's just like see an exam question, and they are asking you to state the disadvantages. But once you just read the question, you didn't read it well. So you thought it was rather advantage. And you are giving advantages while the question is asking you to give disadvantage. It's just a waste of time. You have failed, or you have deviated the question. In the same way, that's how some of us pray. We deviate from the way in which God is telling us to pray. Some of us may have even printed wicked prayers against our enemies that we read every morning when we get up, thinking that God will listen to such a prayer. Today, as we go back home, we are being encouraged to go and re-edit such a prayer and turn it into a kind and merciful prayer, so that God will listen to that kind and merciful prayer of ours towards our enemy, so that it will bring about transformation. It will bring about a change of mind and heart into the life of our enemy. And even if we have a verbal wicked formula that we normally pray for our enemies, this morning we are being encouraged to change or re-edit that prayer when we are praying, and pray well, wish our enemies well in our prayer, so that God will listen to such a prayer and we will not waste our time, our energy, and our resources. So as I conclude, some questions that we can ask ourselves is, am I able to forgive like David? What kind of prayer have I formulated against my enemy?